This video is going to be a little different than my typical video because I actually have a special guest. Some of you may have seen my YouTube video about my biggest mistake in moving abroad, and I talked about Deborah Dahab, who's an expat coach, and she talks all about the personal experiences and challenges in a move abroad. So today, she's actually going to be joining us, and I'm going to be asking her all of the questions that you submitted on my community page here on YouTube and my social media about your curiosities, doubts, all of those things in moving abroad. And yeah, let's get to the chat with Deborah. Hi, and welcome to this interview with an expat coach. So today I'm having a special guest on my YouTube channel. Her name is Deborah Dahab. She's an expat coach and an intercultural psychologist. She's lived in multiple countries, and she's also a fellow expat who lives in Portugal. So Deborah, would you like to say hello and add anything to explain what it is that you do?
Well, thank you, Julia. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I am an expat coach. I've been an expat for 40 plus years and counting. I'm really happy to be here and share a little bit of what I do and possibly help people who are watching.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm so excited to chat with you. So, I guess let's start out with, for those who don't know, what exactly is an expat coach and what is it that you do to help expats?
Okay, sure. This is a very common question. Well, people know about coaching, right? And the most common modalities that people know about coaching usually is business coaching, executive coaching, health coaching, parenting coaching. And expat coaching is the niche for people who are either preparing to move abroad and or have moved abroad. So it's kind of like a spin-off of life coaching, in the sense that it's really targeted at helping people who are in the process of moving abroad and adjusting to align their needs and that phase in life, so they can make the best, easiest, smoothest transition to the new culture, to the new life.
Yeah, that's so great. Actually, when I moved, I didn't know that expat coaches existed and what they did. So I was so excited to find you online and see all of your content. And I've learned a lot. Some things maybe I should have done differently. And now that I'm here, there's still some time to make things go better. So yeah, thanks for all of the work that you do. And I'm happy that we can share with more people what it is that you do, that expat coaches exist, and hopefully help more people avoid or kind of make their challenges a little bit smaller.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I've moved around a lot, and I've been an expat coach and an intercultural psychologist for about almost 7 years. And before, I didn't know this either. So I decided to create a service that catered to something that I wish I had had.
Yeah. Okay, so there are some things that people maybe need to think about before moving abroad and then also after. So let's start with before. So for someone who's thinking about moving abroad and they're not exactly sure if it's the right decision at that time, what questions would you suggest that they ask themselves to help decide if moving abroad is the right thing at that time?
Okay, so I think there are basically 3 questions that you should ask yourself, or like 2 questions in a tool that can help.
Mm-hmm.
The first question is, what do I want to move for? If the answer is because, then you're doing it wrong. The answer has to be, I want to move to blah, 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 blah. I want to move for blah, 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 blah. Because when you're using the because, you're in justifying mode, and you're probably telling us or telling yourself all the whys. And those are usually the push factors, the aspects that you want to avoid, you want to get rid of. And the pull factors of what attracts you to this new place are really what matters. Because once you do move, all the whys are gone. And it's really important to know what your end game is, what your purpose is, so you don't get mixed up and you don't lose track and lose sight of the ultimate goal, because you will have ups and downs, you will have challenges in the way. The second thing I would ask myself, or I have helped clients with this, is how does this move align with your long-term life goals? And it's really important that this alignment is shared among the family members, if that's the case. I'm sorry. And the third thing is a tool that I actually have a video in my channel that explains in detail about this, and it's also part of my programs. But in a nutshell, it's called the pro-con list. So we usually like to compare the pros and cons, right? Mm-hmm. But the problem is that you're comparing apples and oranges, good things with bad things. So I propose a shift in that, a little twist in that tool is to say have a pro and pro list, and then a con and con list. So you're going to list the pros of staying with the pros of going, because there's ultimately a choice, stay or go. And then the cons of staying with the cons of going. So you're able to compare good aspects with bad aspects, and you're comparing apples with apples and oranges with oranges. So these three things I think are really important to be very clear and aligned before you move.
Yeah, I had never thought about it that way, and that's such a good point. So, yeah, and I think it's, you mentioned before about not focusing on why you want to get away, but what you want to move to. And I think that can probably really help people stay positive and look like, what can my future be? And I think that's a really good mindset to start off with, since it's going to be challenging. So yeah, I love the way that you described it. And those are all great questions. So let's talk about more. Now you've already moved, and there are different things that you're going to be facing. I polled my YouTube community and my social media followers about what questions they wanted to ask you, and a big theme was people. So like if you're going to move, sometimes you have a big distance from family and friends back home, or even a huge time zone difference. So how do you recommend staying connected with family and friends back home?
Okay, that's a great question and a very important one, because I say that the family and friends back home, they're kind of like your roots. They're the people who know you, who get you. You don't have to explain too much. You don't have to tell your life story 1,000 times like with new people. And these are like your roots. And then your friends in your new place are kind of like your wings, or new adventures, new experiences. And it's important to have a balance of both. So to stay connected with your friends and family back home, I would suggest to create what I call in my program the connection plan. Mm-hmm. And it is really to do something structured. If you think you're going to wing it, sorry to tell you, but most times you're going to forget to call. It's going to be a different time difference, and it's going to be either too late for you or too early for whoever. And with time, you will lose touch. You will lose contact. And if that's something you don't want to happen, it really requires a little bit of effort. Mm-hmm. So the connection plan basically is, before you move, to agree with the people back home on how, when, how often you're going to connect. Is it going to be through Zoom? Some people love Zoom. Some people hate Zoom. Some people prefer just talking on the phone. Other people like texting. So it creates a good vibe, and also it makes people more. If some people are a little bit resistant to your move, because sometimes people get a little bit resentful, or even envious, but they don't even know how to articulate that, so they just reject you. It's a good way to show goodwill, to accommodate their needs. How often do they want to be in touch? How do they want to be in touch? So really accommodate to their needs at that time. And then, of course, it can evolve, it can change, but it creates a good starting point. The second thing is to, this might sound strange, but the first few times you connect after you move, to have 2 or 3 questions prepared about the other person's life, and as specific as possible, because when you do move, it's so easy to get wrapped up in your new experience and talk about the things that are happening to you, good, bad, doesn't matter. But it's really important to acknowledge that there's another person there who hasn't left that place and who also has a life. And friendship is about, it's a two-way street. So, and it's so easy because you have so much to talk about, and it's not on purpose. You don't do it like, it's not malicious, but it's just things that we end up doing that. So have 2 or 3 questions and really focus on the other person. Like, okay, that problem at work, how did you manage that? How did that go pan out? Or how was your daughter's birthday? Or, things that acknowledge that even though you are far apart physically, you can still be connected emotionally.
Yeah, that's such a good point. When I first moved abroad, I did feel like bombarded with a lot of thoughts about my new life. So it is a really good point to consciously make sure that you're asking about what's going on in their lives, especially for those people that maybe were not as sure about your move abroad, to make them feel connected. So yeah, thanks for all of those tips. I think that's really a clever way to show like good faith about staying connected, and I think that like that effort will be hopefully reciprocated and help keep that relationship strong as you, however long you stay abroad. So okay, also talking about people, but not back home in your new country. So one of the things, I mean, most people probably need some kind of support group and friends to hang out with. And when you move abroad, you may or may not know anybody when you arrive. So what tips do you have on making friends with people in your new country, and making friends with locals even, and in the face of maybe some language barriers? What tips do you have on connecting with new people?
Okay, so and that's very important because in my research with expats, there are 3 main challenges. The first one has to do with communication, feeling frustrated that you can't communicate properly. The second one has to do with paperwork, bureaucracy, like not knowing the spoken and unspoken rules and norms. And the third one has to do with loneliness. And I think it has to do one thing. So there are a couple of tips. First tip, manage expectations. It's very unlikely that you're going to land in your new place, and in the span of 2 weeks, you're going to have 5 best friends.
If
Okay.
Only.
Making friends is typically organic. Like, how long did it take you to make friends in your home country? A long time. And you know 3 people through friends of friends, through school, through work, through the community, through a church you might go to, through a class you might take, and it takes time. You meet dozens of people, 2 or 3 click, and then one of them has the same availability, and then you make friends with them. It's just that you don't notice it because you're immersed in that for so long. Mm-hmm. When you shift that and you drop, you find yourself in a new environment, it's unrealistic to think that you're going to go through that process that took you maybe decades in a month. Okay, so the first thing is to really manage expectations. The second thing is to start making friends before you move. And you can do that a lot easier now with social media. So how do you make a friend? By being one. And there's a quote by Zig Ziglar, and he says something along the lines of, if you go out to make a friend, you'll find they're very scarce. If you go out to be a friend, you'll find they're plentiful. Mm-hmm. So if someone online, one of the Facebook groups or whatever, they're asking a question, they need help, offer help, answer, give support. Because that's a way people will start to connect with you. That's one tip. And this also applies for after you move. Like if you meet someone in a meetup, for example, let's say you meet someone and they tell you, and I'm going to give a crazy example, but you get the gist of it. Someone says, "Oh, I really like that cheese. I really like that cheese." And you go, and it's kind of rare. You can't find it here. You go to a supermarket. You see that cheese. What do? You send the person a text. "Hey, I just found that cheese that you like. Do you want me to pick some up for you? And I'll give it to you." That's being a friend. It's remembering stuff. It's being there. It doesn't have to be like for drastic events in your life. It can be these small little things, but it means you're thinking of someone. They mentioned they were feeling a bit under the weather. Send a message the next day. "Are you feeling better? Do you need anything?" That's being a friend. So these two tips I think are the most important. And then there's this whole thing of being friends with locals. And it might happen, it might not happen, but it's a process. Some people, it depends on if you're working, if you're not working, if you have already friends that are locals, if you don't have friends that are locals. There's so many different variables in the process that it can be easy for some people. It can be super difficult for others. It also depends on where you're moving to and where you're from. So, and the last tip I would give is and this is something that I also say in one of my videos, is like, be brave and befriend the unfamiliar. We tend to navigate toward people who are similar to us because that's the normal thing. But when you do move, you have a chance to do something different. No one knows you, so try new things. Like imagine that you're a person who really likes to read and very intellectual, and that's fine. So you would go to a book club, go to a hiking group, go to climbing group, or do something that challenges you. So you can get literally out of your comfort zone and meet people that are different from what you usually would navigate towards. And you would be surprised because people are not their labels. People are people. They're multidimensional. So just, take a chance and befriend the unfamiliar.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love what you said about being a friend first, and then you'll find that you make friends easily. I've definitely found that to be true now that I've been here. I've been in Portugal 3 years. I'm kind of familiar. I'm not still lost sometimes, but I'm familiar with things, and so I see people who need help, and I reach out, and I've made a lot more friends recently doing this by, "Oh, I know how to do that. I can help someone." So can confirm it's a good way to make friends. Okay, you touched a little bit on bureaucracy in this last question, but so when you move abroad, you have to deal with bureaucracy and new culture, new language, and that can be a stressful process. You go to do something and you have kind of an instinct, but actually your instinct doesn't work here, and you're confronted with that a lot. So what advice do you have on coping with so many changes at one time? How can someone try to organize it in their brain or make it more manageable?
Okay, so the overwhelm and moving abroad seem to, go together. And the first thing is that if you're not feeling anxious or, feeling a little bit like not knowing what to do, you're not in touch with reality. So if you're feeling that, congratulations, you're, in reality, and because it is a huge deal to move abroad. So just, manage the expectation that there are moments when you're going to feel that. Now, that said, there are tools that you can use to kind of lower that level of stress so you can think properly. For some people, it might be meditation, breathing exercises. I do have what I call a supercharged to-do list, and I won't explain it here because That's not, but people can look it up in my channel. And it's basically a tool to help people have a bird's eye view of everything they need to do and why they need to do it and how they can get help. Because when our thoughts are disorganized, everything else, our decision making is crappy because we can't think properly, and then we start second guessing ourselves, and then we start getting sick because we're stressed. So that's a mental way to do that. There are other ways, and this is going to sound very cliche, but self-care. Take breaks. Moving abroad is not a sprint, it's a marathon, especially for people who need to apply for visas and get documentation and go through all those steps. It can take a year plus. So, really manage your stress levels with what makes you happy. If it's taking a break and walking around the block when you start to feel stressful, do that. If it's just, making a mint tea and looking out the window, do that. If it's a massage, do that. If it's, whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be something expensive or too complicated. But learn to read your body before you get too stressed. And know that it's part of the process. You are aiming towards one of the most stressful life events, which is moving abroad even more so. So, and honestly, it's not for everyone. Not everyone wants or has the muscle to do it. You can create the muscle, but it's like going to the gym. Some people are naturally built. Some people need to work. And some people, like me, I don't really care about it. So it's not for me. So, and that's where the first question that you asked goes in. Like, if it's getting too tough and too difficult, well, it's time to ask yourself, what are you moving for, really?
Well, yeah, it's a huge relief to hear that you should probably feel normal, that if you're having challenges and some stress coping, that's a common process. It's really nice to hear that, you're not alone in that. Taking a break sounds like a great suggestion. Like, I sometimes when I'm feeling stressed out being in such a new place, I call home just to feel like I need to be American for a minute.
Or, watch a TV show. Or, go buy, I don't know, American peanut butter, whatever brings you solace at that moment. It's fine. And if things get too tough, get help.
Yeah. So let's talk about when things get too tough. And actually, you mentioned a little bit how to, when you're feeling like it's not working. So how does someone know when to call it quits? Like, they've moved abroad, they've tried the experience, and it's not going well. How do you know when it's a challenge and you can push through, or this isn't the right thing for me and let's try again later?
Yeah, this is a very, very personal thing, right? There's no really cookie cutter answer to this. For me, I've had this experience where I realized after 4 years that it wasn't enough. How I knew was that I kept a journal. Okay. And I kept reading, my earlier entries, like, wow, this is being repetitive. It seems like there's a pattern here. And then I started giving myself deadlines. So if until X date I'm not feeling better, I'm going to, do something about it or whatever. And then it started, and I realized that I had to leave. Now, up to 40% of international assignments in a corporate setting fail. People leave. Up to 40%. So this is not unheard of. There's a report by PricewaterhouseCoopers, and when I was doing my research about my business, it's like up to 40% of people who move within a corporation leave. And when they come up to the reasons why that happens, most of 70% of the people who leave, the reasons why that happened was because the families couldn't adjust. Hence, preparation. That's why today I focus a lot more on helping people prepare to move abroad. Because if you're not preparing properly with the mindset and you only think about the logistics, the paperwork, chances are, and they're quite high according to this research, that you're either going to be unhappy or you're going to leave and say, I can't do this anymore. And you don't want that to happen, right? I mean, it's a huge investment. So knowing when to quit depends on each situation. It depends on if you're solo. It depends on how much your financial situation depends on being in this country. It depends on if you have kids or not. It depends on your what for. What I can tell you is that I had a client once, and he had moved to Portugal to pursue his master's. And after he finished, after he graduated, he was like, okay, what do I do now? Do I go back? And then that's when he started working with me, and he realized, no, he didn't want to go back. He reframed his what for. He created another one. So it really depends. But when you know your what for, when you know that the move is aligned with your goals, with your long-term goals, the chances of this happening are a lot lower.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so that's all the questions we have time for, but maybe you watching are still having questions about, should I move? What do I do? I've already moved and I need some help, or I moved and I think I'm fine, but maybe I'm not asking the right questions. So Deborah has her own YouTube channel, which I'll link in the description below, and she has tons of great videos. I've watched many of them and learned a lot, so I would highly recommend going to her YouTube channel. She also has the Expat Connection Facebook group, and I'll leave a link for the description in that as well. I'll let you add some to it, but she does have events through there where you can meet other people that are moving abroad, and lots of great tips and discussions. So I've participated in and found really helpful personally. But yeah, the links to those resources will be in the description. Deborah, do you have anything to add more about your YouTube channel or your Facebook group or your business?
Well, thank you. Yeah, the YouTube channel has, 50 plus videos about different specific topics. I do run a coaching program, which is an evergreen program. People can join at any time, called Master Your Move. And just get in touch if you want to learn more. It's by enrollment, so I talk to every single person who's in the group to make sure that it's a positive, uplifting, supportive environment. And I also have courses, and I run, as you mentioned, every month a free event called the Expat Connection Live Chat. And it's a place for people to connect and start making friends even before you move. So all of this information is in my Facebook group, on my website, and if anyone wants, they can always just get in touch, shoot me a DM. I'll be happy to help.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. So yeah, all that information will be in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you got some help from the answers that Deborah shared today. I learned something, and yeah, thanks, and bye-bye.
Bye, thank you. Bye.